Chapter 14. The burning heap was in a wide glade surrounded by a crowd of sickly-looking eucalypts. It was a pile of dampened leaves, roughly 2 meters across and 5 feet high. What made it fascinating to Vivian was the place that it had been set up. 2 corner brick walls and a stone fireplace poked out of the earth like the bones of a long-dead animal, the remains of an old cottage. The heap had been built by Tank within the ruin by dumping barrel load after barrel load hard up against the mouth of the old fireplace. Vivian nodded his silent approval. The big boy may not have been good at mathematics, but he'd been smart enough to choose an ideal location for a fire. The walls provided a natural windbreak against the autumn gusts, and the bricks would do a good job containing the heat. Looking through one empty window cavity, Vivian saw backdrops of twisted grey tree trunks leading back into shifting shadows. The ruin, and indeed the whole glade, had such a theatrical quality that it gave him the feeling that he was on a giant artificial stage or movie lot. "Cozy crib," he said, stepping back and wiping his hands on his jeans. "Someone ought to call the cleaning crew, though. This place is about 100 years overdue." Token stepped forward and produced a box of matches. "We the cleaning crew, remember?" He held the box out to Vivian, who looked at the matches doubtfully and shook his head. "There's almost a day's worth of rain in that pile," he said. "It'll never catch." "Oh, it'll burn." The dark boy gave him a grim smile. "Don't you be worrying about that, cobweb." He gestured to Lewis, who went to a nearby tree and removed a rock, revealing a small hole. Reaching aside, the Mexican pulled out a bottle of clear, silvery liquid and unscrewed the cap. He held it under Vivian's nose, and the boy instantly screwed his face and pulled his head back. A sharp, chemical odor had shoved like a rude finger up through his nostrils. It was a smell so powerful, so potent, that Vivian had almost been able to taste it in the back of his throat. "Familiar?" Lewis said. "Why would it be?" Vivian grimaced. The Mexican boy waved his hand over the neck of the bottle, wafting the fumes toward Vivian, who retreated further. "Oh, maybe you might have caught it on a certain warden's breath yesterday," he said. "Mallory?" Vivian nodded, now recognizing the smell. "He drinks that stuff?" "More than that." Lewis turned and began waving the bottle over the pile. "He makes it in that shack of his down by the fields." "Makes it?" Vivian frowned. "How?" Lewis shrugged. "Don't know how, but he got all the stuff he needs." He guffawed. "Murkwater moonshine, baby. Rotten old bastard's got about 2 days' supply stored in the kitchen." "More like a week's worth," Token snorted. "More like a month's worth," Tank continued. "Point is, he never stops drinking, and he never stops making. And us, the poor kids," Lewis gave a crooked smile. "Hell, half the vegetables that we dig up go into the mix." Ropey gouts of silver sprang from the bottleneck as if from a sliced artery. They curled in the air, growing in size, and then splashed over the sodden leaves. Vivian wrinkled his nose. "It smells like paint thinner or something." "Nearly is." Lewis grinned over his shoulder. "What is moonshine?" Vivian asked. "Paint thinner," Token confirmed. Lewis gave a cry as Tank, who was dragging the wheelbarrow out the way, gave his shoulder a playful shove. "Hey, you dick, I spilled it on my hand." Tank laughed and flopped down into the barrow like it was his favorite armchair. It gave a metallic groan and sank into the ground a little. "Good," he said. "Now rub your eyes." "How about I piss in your eyes, pendejo?" Vivian smirked. He was relieved to see that the gloominess that had overtaken the pack earlier appeared to have subsided somewhat. He glanced back to Token to see if he too had relaxed. The dark boy stood beside the trunk of a tree so bent and twisted that to Vivian it looked like a tangle of human bodies. Still holding the matches in his open palm, Token had raised his frowning face to watch the gnarled wooden boughs waving above them. The wind moaned through the clearing, ruffling his dreadlocks, and the dark boy shivered at its touch. Sensing his friend's unease, Vivian went and stood beside him. "This be a bad place," the dark boy said. "Bad for you, bad for me." Vivian pressed his lips together, understanding that Token meant more than their immediate surroundings. He looked to the west and saw the dark outline of the orphanage climbing above the tree line like a small mountain. "Murkwater," he said. "You scared of it?" Token nodded slowly. "You know, me and Cyan, we lived in some rough neighborhoods before." He swallowed. "There was even this alleyway that if you were a kid you just didn't go because..." Vivian thought of the Candle Street underpass and nodded. "I know a place like that." Token continued as if barely hearing him. "But I ain't never felt the kind of wrongness that I felt when coming here." His face had a faraway expression. "You're getting to feel it in everything," he said. "The air tastes bad, the soil feeling dry when you dig it up, the birds barely sing, and the trees..." "Yeah, they're kind of hard to miss," Vivian said, and they both snickered at that for a moment. "This place is kind of creepy, I'll give you that." "Murkwater is cursed, Vivian," Token said suddenly. "I'm sorry I didn't tell yesterday." Vivian thought back to how impatient he was the night before. "Well, why didn't you?" Token fixed him with an incredulous look. Give me a break, man. We just met. You'd have thought I was batshit crazy. Vivian smiled inwardly at the answer. The fact that Token cared about what he thought of him was a good sign. Maybe he wasn't as removed from the pack as he had earlier feared. Besides, Token continued, you're a troublemaker. I didn't need you shooting your mouth off. You saw how Gorgon be reacting to this stuff. Okay, Vivian began. So let me get this straight. You think a dead kid is wandering around Murkwater? Token's blue eye glared at him. Yes. And that ambulance that came this morning wasn't no ambulance. Token cut him off. They're just here for collection. You've seen it before. Token nodded. Couple of times since I've been here. It'll be the only time any of us leave. So that girl, Vivian said, thinking of the girl with the chocolate-coloured ponytails from the day before. You're saying she's dead? Don't know for sure, Token said. No one ever seen how they come out. But once the meat wagon comes, that's it. Vivian allowed a nervous smile to play on his lips. You're talking about murder, right? I'm talking about a kind of murder, Token corrected. Not the kind that you would know about, Cobweb. Well, then shouldn't there be lots of police cars and guys in biosuits taking samples and cops taping areas off and stuff like that? Maybe there should be, Token said. But how are you going to catch a ghost? Vivian slid his hands into his pockets and leaned back against the tree. I don't know, man. I want to believe you, but a kid coming back from the dead, killing other kids, I mean, that's kind of pushing it, don't you think? No, I don't. Vivian felt a vague sense of ridiculousness nibbling at the edges of his reason. Okay, he said. Let's say I buy it. How could the Wardens not know about this? Token looked at Vivian like he had just farted. Be real, man. Who'd be calling that meat wagon if not the Wardens? Vivian mimed tipping his hat to Token. Fair point, he said. But then why didn't the Wardens call the police too? Token gave a mirthless chuckle. And I was just starting to think that you were wisening up. Vivian gave an embarrassed grin. So they know, but they don't want the police involved. Would you, if it be your job on the line? Token said. Probably not, Vivian admitted. But you know, Token, maybe it's not a ghost. An unpleasant thought occurred to him. Maybe it's the Wardens themselves, you know. Maybe they're like kids. He gave an indicative bob of his head. You know what I mean. Token gave him an uncomfortable look. It ain't that. The Wardens used to be kids here too, remember? They wouldn't be turning that way. Vivian shrugged. I'm just saying that's the more likely thing, and a ghost isn't. Token folded his arms. You thinking this is just a rumor we started, huh? Well, there are 100 metal plaques out there that say you are wrong. And you think Forest Green killed all of them, Vivian concluded. Kids from long ago be talking about Forest Green. Token leaned in, both eyes wide, his voice a hoarse whisper. They taught us his name, Cobweb. They taught us his song. Taught it to protect us. Same with the gingerbread man, same with the bird bones and everything else. He's been here and taken out kids since before even Tank got here. And Tank was the first of our pack. Another gust of autumn wind swept through the glade, throwing up leaves. Vivian's teeth chattered, and he felt the first pinpricks of rain on his hands. Token again held out the matches. Wouldn't be waiting too long, Vivian Fox, he said. Vivian shook his head, but plucked the box from Token's palm, realizing in some deep compartment of his mind that it was more than just matches he was accepting. You're going to have to give me more than this if you want me to toe this line, he said. You hear me, Token? I want in. I want to be part of the pack. Officially. You in, man? Token held out his hand, and the boys gripped forearms. Legionnaire, swear it. You were in the moment you protected Tank. He gave his yellow grin. And we give you more. You'll be getting your proof tonight, okay? A bellow of laughter rolled across the clearing, and Vivian and Token turned. Tank was rocking back and forth like a child on a carnival ride. In front of him, Lewis cursed and strained against the wooden handles of the wheelbarrow. It appeared that he was trying to pitch it onto its side, whereby spilling Tank onto the ground. However, it was like watching an ant trying to lift a boulder. Tank laughed harder and harder, holding his stomach. Push, Mighty Mouse, push, he cried. Lewis, give it up, Token called. Fat ass said I was a Puerto Rican, Lewis grunted, his face purple with effort. I'm just trying to save your back, man, Token shrugged. But you go right ahead if it makes you feel better. Lewis released the handles of the barrow with a snarl. He gave them a kick as he walked away. Tank lay back, breathing hard and still chuckling to himself, a low fart squeezing out from beneath him like the note of a trumpet. Vivian looked at his pack with the warmth of assurance. He wasn't alone anymore. They were his friends, his comrades, and he made a silent decision then and there that whatever had happened to that girl was not going to happen to them. He wouldn't let it. He glanced again at the craggy outline of Murkwater, and then struck a match and tossed it.